In this tutorial, I will show you my grandmother's cast-on. This cast-on I have been using for years, and without fail, it is always stretchy and works for almost every type of knitting project. What you're going to need in order to practice this cast-on is a ball of yarn. I suggest something that is DK or worsted, especially if you're a beginner, and a needle that matches the yarn type that you're using. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter needle for this tutorial, which matches the gauge that would be needed for this heavy worsted that I have right here. This is an acrylic yarn. So this cast-on does not involve starting at the end of your yarn, but in fact, starting somewhere into your skein. So you will need to have your yarn ball on your right and your extra yarn on your left. And in order to figure out how much yarn you need to be into your skein, you are roughly going to need to know how wide your cast-on is going to be. For example, if I am knitting a scarf that is 8 inches in width, I'm going to multiply that by 3 to know how far into my skein I'm going to go. I'm always going to want to have about 4 to 6 inches of yarn at the end of my skein to start with, as a little bit of extra, and of course to be sewn in. Keep in mind that if you are knitting something in pieces and you're going to want a long yarn tail to sew your pieces together, you're going to want to keep more yarn to your left in order to account for that extra amount needed. So I'm just going to be casting on a few stitches. So I'm not going to have a lot of yarn to my left, maybe about 24 inches or so. So I've got my yarn on my right, my extra on my left, and I need to start by making what is called a slip knot. And your slip knot will actually also be your first stitch. So what I'm going to do is use my pointer finger in my left hand, and I am going to put my hand face up and lie that yarn across my finger. And I am going to wrap that around and make an X. My extra is being held down here in my left hand. And what I'm going to do now is take this yarn and I am going to tuck it under right here. And I am going to pull that piece that's tucked up and out. And that is my slip knot. I can pull it a little bit. As you can see, it's getting smaller. And that will be my first stitch, and I can put that on my needle when I'm ready. I'll show you that one more time. I've got my palm up, my left hand yarn is down here below my left hand. I'm putting my yarn across the palm of my hand, and I'm going to go around my pointer finger and make an X, and then I'm going to tuck that right hand yarn underneath here. I'm going to pull it up, and there is my slip knot. I'm going to tighten it a little bit down because now I'm going to reach for my needle, and I'm going to put that through and tighten it up. I don't want to tighten it up too much, just so that it's a little grippy on my needle, but no more, because if it's tighter than that, I'm going to have a hard time knitting it later. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to bring that yarn across the front of my thumb. I'm going to go around and make another X. There's a theme here in this video with X's. I am now going to put my needle under the yarn that's sitting on my thumb. And I'm going to take the yarn that's in my right hand, and I'm going to wrap it behind the needle and around as if to do the knit stitch. Now what I'm going to do is come under and through the bottom of my X, push that on, take my thumb out, and I'm going to pull. Not too tight. there's my first 2 stitches. And as you can see with this method, it is spacing it quite nicely with yarn. So you're never going to find that your stitches are too tight together, which is really nice about this. So I'm going to make another one. I'm going to come across my thumb, go around the back and over. Now I'm going to go under the yarn at the side of my thumb. I'm going to take the yarn in my right hand. I'm going to wrap around, holding it nicely in my right hand. I'm going to nudge that up, and I am going to go through the bottom of my X to the front, through, and pull. And there we go. I've got another stitch. One more time. Across, around to make that X, up the side, around the back, to the front as if to knit. I'm going to nudge that up a little bit, and I'm going to go through the bottom of the X to the front and pull. And as you get more comfortable with this, you'll find that you can do it quite quickly and easily. It becomes quite comfortable. This cast on method I have seen being called the thumb cast on English style. I actually went looking to see what it said about this to find out what it was, because I really don't know anybody else who does this cast on method. But it is quite nice and stretchy. I've used it for socks. I've used it in the round. I've used it in the flat. And I always find that it does quite a good job, unless I'm working with a project that needs a very specific cast on. I hope that you will find that helpful, and it will help you continue your knitting journey. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.